Paul McGuire, and we are in a hotel room looking down on Times Square near where the ball drops each year, doing a video documentary for a prophecy of the future of America, and doing research while I'm here intensively, going down to the financial district, Wall Street, and things like that. I want to talk to you about what I have been experiencing doing research here and talking to the people in New York City, from New York City. And I spent some time just simply talking to shop owners to get an idea from, you know, the man on the street, if you will. And many of these guys just began talking to me because it was pouring rain. I had to buy an umbrella, and this guy just began talking to me. I didn't even ask him questions, and you get a real feel for what's going on. People are very apprehensive about what's happening in our nation right now, economically especially, and the forces that are causing the economy to be well, in a downward trend, with the potential of a very serious downward trend. And that is something that we need to address. As I was doing research for the book, I go into the Federal Reserve and the history of the Federal Reserve, and then I also go into the religious and spiritual movements behind the individuals that composed the Federal Reserve, especially at its beginning. And you see a very interesting theological portfolio, if you will. And that is that many of these men were at the founding of the Federal Reserve, and going back to the central banks that our founding fathers were very concerned about, were members of the Illuminati. That's not some conspiracy theory talk. That's a matter of historical record. The Illuminati was established in 1776, the same year that our nation was born. And again, this is documented material, and it's not documented from obscure sources. It's documented from statements made by Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Jonathan Edwards, not the founder, but the father of the first Great Awakening. And these men were educated men, and they were warned of the dangers of the Illuminati. Some were members of the Illuminati at the founding of our nation. See, a lot of people don't understand things that they should understand. And when you're not educated, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but when you're not educated and you haven't done your homework, knowledge is power. So when you don't have knowledge and when you're not educated historically, you're vulnerable to propaganda and brainwashing and indoctrination. And sadly to say, most Americans are brainwashed. We watched the Hunger Games, the second movie, the other night, and it was a very interesting movie because the people in the Hunger Games were brainwashed. But it began to change as the movie moved forward. And it's very sad that so many people that should know the truth, you know, Jesus Christ said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." He wasn't just talking about spiritual truth. Of course, he first and foremost was talking about himself. That's bad English, but himself as the truth, because he said, Jesus Christ said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but through me." So truth in its total sense, in its multidimensional sense, is personal, because there's a personal living God of the universe. So truth is not just some philosophical concept. Truth converges in a deity, a triune being, which is the personal living God of the universe. But when we talk about the Bible being true, we're not just talking about the Bible being true spiritually. We're talking about the Bible being true historically, economically, scientifically, sociologically, and in every area of life the Bible's true. The science of predictive programming, which is something that I deal with in my book, A Prophecy of the Future of America. And essentially, predictive programming is a science that was developed where science fiction authors, for example, or authors or film directors, beginning many years ago and becoming very prominent, let's say in the 1920s, and then in an upward scale, science fiction authors like H.G. Wells, who wrote War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man. He wrote many science fiction novels that predicted a futuristic society. And then he wrote nonfiction material like The Open Conspiracy and Blueprints for a New World Order. And he, in his nonfiction books, gave very explicit instructions on how to create a totalitarian state, supposedly run by a scientific elite that knew how to run your life better than you do. And that was his goal, was to drive the world forward into this, they believe, somewhat benevolent totalitarian state run by a scientific elite for the so-called betterment of mankind. What they don't tell you in the history books is that H.G. Wells was part of some of these secret occult societies, although he pretended to be an atheist. And he was a Fabian socialist, and the other Fabian socialists also had this common goal of this utopian new world order run by a scientific elite, which goes all the way back to Atlantis. And in Atlantis, and what do we know about Atlantis? Well, there is speculation, there's legend, there's supposedly evidence, archaeological evidence that's not proven. But the great philosopher Plato had information about Atlantis, and he wrote about it in his book, A New Republic. And in Plato's A New Republic, he called for the creation of a utopia run by 10 god kings or 10 philosopher kings. And Plato got his idea from the Atlantean form of government, which was run by 10 god kings. Who were these god kings? Well, I get into it in my book, A Prophecy of the Future of America. It goes way back to interdimensional beings procreating with human women and creating and giving mankind super technology and super science. And you say, well, how can you say that? Well, if you look at the ancient monolithic structures from apparently pre-flood civilizations, massive temples and ruins and the Incan monuments and Mayan monuments and underground pyramids and all other kinds of structures. These are highly advanced archaeological finds, but more importantly, on a scientific and architectural engineering basis, we currently have no explanation for how these highly advanced scientific super civilizations were able to create these structures, because we don't even have the technology today to move such massive stones that compose the pyramids, for example, with such mathematical precision, and how they lined up to the star systems and so on. So, Atlantis, the idea of 10 god kings or a scientific elite or an Illuminati, the illumined ones, the enlightened ones, and that, of course, also tying into the Tower of Babel, where Nimrod built the Tower of Babel, and Babel, or Babylon, literally means gate of the gods. It's a stargate, and it was an interdimensional portal. The Tower of Babel was not only a worship tower where they worshiped the host of heaven in an occult religious sense, but it was a technological instrument, if you will, or a technological